me now? How you like me now? Ah! Now, I don't know how I like you now, but let's get into it, you guys. Hip hop legend Fat Joe is being sued by his former hype man, Terrance T.A. Dixon, for $20 million dollars in a lawsuit full of explosive allegations. So here's what we know. T.A. Terrance Dixon, he is alleging that his former boss, whose real name is Joseph Antonio Cartagena, engaged in coercive labor exploitation, financial fraud, actual manipulation, violent intimidation, and psychological coercion. Dixon adds also that the hip hop star behind such chart toppers as What's Love got rich and famous while he and his associates deliberately suppressed, silenced, and erased Dixon's substantial creative, artistic, and commercial contributions, which were foundational to Fat Joe's professional success and personal brand. He is seeking up to $20 million dollars in damages. So now the complaint was filed in U.S. District Court, Southern District of New York. The details are very disturbing. There are claims about Fat Joe's alleged actual relationships with women, including minors, and it also contains a trigger warning on the first page of a 157-page document. It says basically that for 16 years, T.A. Dixon served as Fat Joe's so called hype man, which was a common figure in hip hop who supports the artist by energizing the crowd and enhancing the overall performance. It says he also contributed as a lyricist and background vocalist on Congratulations, a song called Ice Cream, and others. But according to the complaint, he had an unrivaled vantage point to observe Fat Joe's offstage lifestyle and his behavior. He is represented by Tyrone Blackburn. If you've heard that name, you know he is the lead counsel in the case against Sean Diddy Combs. But Dixon states in the complaint that Fat Joe forced him into humiliating situations, including X acts performed under duress and surveillance, accompanied by threats of abandonment in foreign countries if he refused compliance. And by his own estimation, Dixon states in the suit that he was coerced into more than 4,000 actual acts to maintain his standing within the enterprise. Now, most shockingly, the suit goes on to claim that T.A. Dixon personally witnessed Fat Joe engage in actual relations with individuals who were 15 and 16 years old and lists three such Jane Does, including a 16-year-old Dominican girl in New York who, in exchange for cash, clothing, and payment of her cell phone bill, would perform OX and other actual acts on the rapper. Minor Doe 2 is a Caucasian female and not a United States citizen. And Fat Joe began having actual relationships with this said Jane Doe number 2 when she was just 15 years old after a concert overseas. It states defendant flew Minor Doe 2 to New York City and Miami, Florida on multiple occasions due to the Minor Doe 2's body being adolescent and not fully formed. It says defendant paid for her to get a Brazilian butt lift. Minor Doe 2 eventually left the defendant and is now married to a professional athlete. Then it goes on to talk about a Minor Doe 3 who is a Latina female who Fat Joe allegedly met when she was only 15 years old, turning 16. Now, according to Dixon, the defendant Fat Joe was in love with Minor Doe 3. He even contemplated leaving his wife. It says the defendant paid all Minor Doe 3's bills and even took her overseas to his tour stops. He brought her to Florida and would put her up in a condo he rented, which was just a few blocks from his house with his wife. It also states in a recorded conversation that minor Doe 3 and her 15-year-old cousin described in detail to the plaintiff how inappropriate it was for a defendant who was in his late 30s at the time to be fawning over young individuals. So, Fat Joe is represented by celebrity criminal attorney Joe Tacopina, who has defended everyone from ASAP Rocky and Donald Trump in some high profile cases. He says that the lawsuit filed by Tyrone Blackburn and Terrance Dixon is a blatant act of retaliation. He says it's a desperate attempt to deflect attention from the civil suit they filed first. So if you're not aware, Fat Joe and his attorney had filed a civil suit against T.A. Dixon for defamation. And this was sometime back in April. So it also states that law enforcement is aware of the extortionate demand at the heart of this scheme. It says the allegations against Mr. Cartagena are complete fabrications, lies intended to damage his reputation and force a settlement through public pressure. It says Fat Joe will not be intimidated. He says we have taken legal action to expose this fraudulent campaign and hold everyone involved accountable. Now, there are also other defendants in this lawsuit, which include Pistol Pete Torres and Richard, also known as Richard Player, who the complaint refers to as key associates in Fat Joe's criminal enterprise, asserting civil claims for violations of the Trafficking Victims Protection Act and the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organization Act, also known as RICO, as well as related violations under New York and Florida law, including unjust enrichment, quantum meruit, fraudulent concealment, fraud, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and also money laundering. Now, the lawsuit also names Jay-Z's Rock Nation, claiming that the company which represents Fat Joe knowingly participated in concealing, transferring, and manipulating Dixon's authorship rights and royalty interests and sought to intimidate, harass, and obstruct the hype man's legitimate claims against Fat Joe, Torres, and Jospitri. According to the lawsuit, the defendants engaged in deliberate tax fraud schemes in an effort to conceal their extensive wage theft, artificially inflate Dixon's tax liabilities, expose him to unwarranted tax audits and penalties, and systemically obscure the exploited labor. Now, the complaint also cites a whistleblower accountant who came forward last year, as well as recorded phone calls that help paint the picture of all these alleged misdeeds. So, Fat Joe's attorneys feel like, once again, all of this is just a retaliation from T.A. Dixon because Fat Joe had sued him back in April for going on social media and basically stating that Fat Joe had flew a 16-year-old girl across state lines for X. T.A. Dixon also said that this is the right way to fight Fat Joe. He said you have to do it through the system. You can't fight him any other way. He said that Fat Joe thinks he's a god and he thinks he's untouchable, which lately, as we see, seems to be a common theme around people who are celebrity status or have a lot of money. But Dixon's lawsuit also tells another story. It talks about a wide spectrum of actual coercion. He talks about psychological control, forced exhibitionism, and also surveillance based humiliation. He said he would be filmed, things would be directed by Fat Joe in the presence of others, and that basically these were tactics designed to control his body, erode his autonomy, and ensure silence. So he states that the enterprise's culture consisted of dominance and humiliation, and that it was enforced by some defendants that are associated in the case, such as Pistol Pete, someone named JB, and others. And all of this happened across various tour locations, including Miami, North Carolina, Germany, Spain, and Wisconsin. In the complaint, T.A. Dixon also complains that the activity took place on Market America's corporate yacht. Now, the complaint goes on to say that T.A. Dixon did not willingly consent to participate in these acts, and that instead, the plaintiff submitted solely out of fear of immediate retaliation, which defendant repeatedly demonstrated would include financial punishment, professional sabotage, abandonment in foreign countries, or even physical harm. There's also notation that Fat Joe also would issue unaliving threats and witness intimidation through direct messages, like text messages, such as "You love your family, right?" or "Fall back in 48 hours and we let you live." Well, so I'm gonna stop right here, but once again, this is a 157-page lawsuit, and pretty much, if I remember reading correctly, Fat Joe has filed a defamation countersuit, denying everything and also accusing T.A. Dixon of trying to shake him down for cash. So I'm going to wrap it up here, but let me know your thoughts about all of this. With the claims that underage girls were allegedly flown across state lines for sexual purposes, similar to the federal charges in the Diddy investigation, do you think the FBI will get involved and this will be a full-blown federal criminal probe, like it turned out for Sean Diddy Combs? Once again, you guys, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next video.